In the story I'm about to tell you today, there are things we bury so deep. We convince ourselves they never happened. But the past doesn't stay buried. And when it comes back wearing a different face, everything we built on lies crumbles. I'm going to tell you the story of Victoria Sullivan and Emma Harrison, the brilliant lawyer Victoria destroyed 9 years ago, the woman who now makes her coffee every morning without Victoria knowing who she really is. Everything changed the night of the storm in San Francisco. Victoria found documents that should never have existed, altered contracts, printed emails, and in the center of it all, a photograph of a young woman standing in front of Stanford Law School. On the back, in faded ink, Emma Harrison, 2015. And then she knew. Her perfect secretary, Emma Hayes, didn't exist. It was Emma, the woman whose career she buried, the woman who had been waiting for 8 months, watching, getting closer. Because Emma didn't come to forgive. She came to make Victoria feel every second of the hell she lived through. But something neither of them expected was about to happen. Something that would turn revenge into something far more dangerous. This isn't just a story about resentment. It's a story about second chances, buried truths, and a forbidden love born from the worst possible place. Stay with me until the end to discover this story. Victoria Sullivan found the folder exactly when the storm hammered against her 18th floor office windows. It shouldn't have been there. Nobody had touched that file in years. But there it was, soaked from the ceiling leak, containing documents bearing her signature, and the name of a woman she swore she'd forgotten. The water damage had revealed what time tried to hide: photographs, altered contracts, printed emails that should never have existed. And in the center of it all, one blurred but unmistakable image. A young woman with dark eyes and a shy smile, standing in front of the University of San Francisco. On the back, in fading ink, Emma Harrison, 2015. Victoria felt the air leave her lungs. That face, those eyes. She'd seen them every morning for the past 8 months, making her coffee, organizing her schedule, existing in silence. Her assistant's name was Emma Hayes, not Emma Harrison. Thunder shook the windows, and Victoria dropped the folder. Papers scattered across the marble floor, each one a sentence, each one a question she didn't want to answer. How much did Emma know? How long had she been waiting? And why the hell was she here? So close, so invisible, so perfectly positioned to destroy everything. The office door opened without anyone knocking. "Ms. Sullivan, the storm's getting worse. Should I call someone to check the ceiling?" Emma entered with her characteristic discretion, wearing that gray dress that made her seem like part of the furniture, her hair pulled back hiding any trace of personality. But her eyes stopped on the open folder on the desk, and for a split second, something dark and ancient crossed her gaze. "No," Victoria responded, her voice rougher than intended. "That won't be necessary. You can go." Emma didn't move. Her fingers closed around the portfolio she always carried, the one Victoria had never seen opened. The lightning illuminated her profile, and Victoria could see what she'd ignored before. The precise line of her jaw, the curve of her lips, the contained intensity of someone who had waited too long. "Are you sure, Ms. Sullivan?" Emma asked, and there was something new in her voice, something that wasn't submission. "Completely. Subscribe now. YouTube prioritizes subscribers, and those who aren't subscribed miss future stories." Emma tilted her head, a gesture that could have been respect or could have been mockery, and left, closing the door with a click that echoed like a verdict. Victoria waited until the footsteps faded down the hallway before bending down to collect the documents. Her hands were shaking. She knew every paper, every signature, Every carefully constructed lie that had taken her from being a junior attorney with no future to becoming the youngest legal director at Castellanos Industries. All thanks to a case she won 9 years ago. A case where another woman should have shined. Emma Harrison, a brilliant attorney, fresh out of law school, who prepared the entire defense of a multi-million-dollar case. Victoria was only her supervisor. But when the time came to present to the partners, Victoria took those arguments, those documents, those strategies, and presented them as her own. Emma protested, demanded recognition. She was fired 3 days later for poor performance and insubordination. Her career ended before it began. Victoria had justified everything with the same words she repeated every night. It was her or me, and I had more to lose. Now, that woman was 3 feet away, separated only by a wall and 9 years of silence. Victoria put the documents in her briefcase, but the photograph stayed on the desk. She held it between her fingers, studying every detail of young Emma's face, looking for differences with the Emma she knew. Her hair was longer then, freer. The smile was genuine. The eyes didn't carry that weight that now characterized them. When had she come back? How much had she planned? And what the hell did she want? The storm intensified outside, and Victoria realized it was almost midnight. Her husband, Michael, had left 3 messages asking when she'd be home. Her son, Tyler, sent a voice message saying he'd won his soccer game. But she couldn't move. Couldn't leave that office knowing that tomorrow she'd have to face Emma, knowing that every word, every gesture, every silence now had a different meaning. She poured herself a whiskey from the minibar, something she rarely did. The liquid burned her throat, but not as much as the question that kept repeating. Had Emma come for revenge or for something worse? Because revenge implied confrontation. It implied screaming, accusations, immediate exposure. But Emma had been there 8 months. 8 months being perfect. 8 months earning everyone's trust. 8 months building something Victoria still didn't understand. She took out her phone and searched the HR system for Emma Hayes' file. Hired in March last year. Impeccable references from a small firm in Oakland. Studies in administration. No indication of legal education. No apparent connection to Emma Harrison. But eyes don't lie. Victoria enlarged the photo from the file and placed it next to the old photograph. The same jawline, the same shape of lips, the same way the light captured something indefinable in her gaze. It was her, and she'd been waiting. Victoria closed the file and turned off the computer. She took her briefcase, her coat, and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she looked toward Emma's desk, that small cubicle outside her office where everything was perfectly organized. Not a personal photo, not an object that revealed anything, just files, folders, the obsessive perfection of someone who doesn't want to be remembered, or someone who's hiding everything. The parking garage was deserted when Victoria arrived. Her BMW gleamed under the neon lights, alone on the executive level. But when she was about to open the door, she saw it. A manila envelope under the windshield wiper, protected from the rain under the glass. Her name was handwritten, elegant, precise calligraphy. Victoria looked around. Nobody, just the echo of her heels on the wet concrete and the distant sound of traffic on Market Street. She took the envelope with trembling hands and opened it. Inside was a single sheet. A printed article from a local newspaper from 2016. The headline read, "Young attorney denounces intellectual theft and harassment at prestigious firm. Case dismissed for lack of evidence." In the margin, in that same handwriting, a single line. "How much is your silence worth, Victoria?" There was no signature. None was needed. Victoria felt her legs fail. She leaned against the car, crumpling the paper between her fingers. The storm had passed, but the air remained charged, electric, threatening. Emma knew. Emma remembered. And Emma had waited 9 years to return. The question was no longer what she wanted. The question was, How much was Victoria willing to pay to keep her life intact? She got in the car and drove home on autopilot, but her mind kept returning to those eyes she'd seen every day without really seeing, to those hands that served her coffee every morning, to that soft voice that never asked for anything, never demanded anything, just waited. When she arrived at her house in Pacific Heights, the lights were off. Michael and Tyler were already asleep. She entered silently, climbed the stairs like an intruder in her own life, and locked herself in her study. She took out the complete folder and spread it on the desk. Documents, emails, the photograph. Everything that condemned her. Everything Emma already knew. She took her phone and looked for Emma's number in the company directory. Her fingers stopped over the call button. What would she say? How do you face someone who has the power to destroy you, and who has chosen the path of silence? She didn't call. She put away the phone. That night, Victoria didn't sleep. She stayed staring at the documents, looking for an exit that didn't exist. Because Emma hadn't asked for money. She hadn't threatened. She'd only planted the seed of fear and withdrawn to wait. And that was worse than any blackmail, because it meant the game had just begun. Victoria arrived at the office at 6 a.m. Before Emma, before anyone. She needed to think, needed to prepare, needed to control something in a world that had become uncontrollable in less than 12 hours. The 18th floor was in semi-darkness, only lit by the city lights filtering through the enormous windows. San Francisco was slowly waking below, oblivious to the chaos brewing in that glass-walled office. Victoria made coffee, something she never did. It was always Emma who had it ready at 8 o'clock sharp, with the exact amount of cream, the perfect temperature. But today she needed to do something with her hands, needed to move, needed to feel she still controlled something. The coffee tasted bitter. She left it on the desk without drinking it. She opened her computer and began searching. Emma Harrison had disappeared from LinkedIn in 2016. Her last registered job was at Castellanos Industries. After that, nothing. As if she'd evaporated. But Emma Hayes had an impeccable profile. References from 3 small firms in Oakland. Verified studies at the University of California. Everything fit perfectly. Too perfectly. Victoria expanded the dates. The references were real, but all from family businesses, small ones, the type that doesn't do thorough verifications, the type of company where you can build an identity from scratch if you know how. A sound pulled her from her investigation. The elevator. It was 7:30. Nobody arrived that early. Victoria closed the computer and waited, her heart pounding in her ears. The office door opened, and Emma entered with her characteristic softness. She wore the same type of discreet dress, hair pulled back, face without makeup beyond nude lipstick. But something had changed. She no longer walked with her head down. She no longer avoided eye contact. Their eyes met through the glass separating Victoria's office from the reception area, and in that moment, the entire game was exposed. Emma smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was a smile that said, "I already know that you know." Victoria stood up and left her office. She couldn't let Emma think she had control, couldn't show weakness. "You're early," she said, maintaining a professional voice. "Like you, Ms. Sullivan," Emma responded, leaving her bag on the desk. "I thought we could talk about last night's storm. It caused some damage to the files." The double meaning was so obvious it hurt. "The files are under control," Victoria responded. "There's nothing that can't be fixed." "Are you sure?" Emma took a step closer, and for the first time, Victoria noticed they were the same height. She'd never seen it because Emma always hunched over, always made herself small. But now she stood fully upright, and her eyes were 2 abysses containing 9 years of silence. Sometimes water reveals things that time tried to hide. Victoria felt her jaw tense. "What do you want, Emma?" For you to call me by my real name, she responded, and her voice broke just enough for Victoria to see that not everything was coldness, that there was something human, something wounded, something dangerous beneath that perfect mask. Emma Harrison, do you remember? Or did you erase my name along with my career? Silence stretched between them like a precipice. I don't know what you're talking about, Victoria lied, but the lie sounded hollow even to her. Emma laughed. It was a humorless laugh, dry, full of a bitterness that had had 9 years to ferment. Of course not, because you never know what you're talking about when something compromises you. That was your specialty, wasn't it? Taking other people's work, presenting it as yours, and when someone protested, she snapped her fingers. They disappeared. I was your supervisor. We had a hierarchical relationship. Everything you did was under my direction. That's how the corporate world works. The corporate world? Emma took another step. Is that what you call it now? I worked 80 hours a week on that case. I found the legal precedent that won it. I built every argument, every defense, every damn word of that presentation. And when the time came for my name to appear, you... Her voice broke, but recovered quickly. You erased it, as if I'd never existed. Victoria wanted to defend herself, wanted to explain that she'd also worked, that she'd also contributed something. But the words choked in her throat because she knew Emma was right. She'd done it. And she'd justified it 1,000 times in her head, but never out loud. So what? Victoria asked, changing tactics. You came to destroy me? You came to expose everything? What do you gain from that? You can't recover what you lost. Emma looked at her for a long moment, and in her eyes, there was something Victoria couldn't decipher. It wasn't just hate. It wasn't just thirst for revenge. There was something more complex, deeper, more disturbing. I want you to feel what I felt, Emma finally said. I want you to wake up every morning wondering if today will be the day everything crumbles. I want you to look at your family, your colleagues, your friends, and know that everything is built on a lie. And I want you to see me. I want you to remember who I am and what you did to me every day when you enter this office. Her voice was low, controlled, but every word was a knife. And after you feel all that, she continued, then we'll talk about what else I want. Victoria took a step back. The implicit threat was clear. This was just the beginning. You could have sued me. You could have made a scandal. You could have? Could have? Emma laughed bitterly. I tried, Victoria. I went to HR, to the partners, even to a lawyer. But you're very good at what you do. Very good at covering your tracks. Very good at convincing people that I was the crazy one, the incompetent one, the one who wanted to steal your job. She paused. It took me 2 years to recover from what you did to me. 2 years in therapy. 2 years working in stores, in restaurants, anywhere that would accept me without asking for legal references. And then I decided that if justice didn't work, I'd have to do justice myself. This is extortion. No, Emma corrected. This is patience. This is waiting for the right moment. This is understanding that revenge isn't served cold. It's served when you're so integrated into someone's life that your absence would be as devastating as your presence. Victoria felt a chill. Emma wasn't improvising. This had been meticulously planned. What have you done? She asked, and for the first time her voice trembled. Nothing. Yet, Emma responded. But I have 8 months of access to your files, your emails, your contacts. 8 months observing your movements, your meetings, your little secrets. And believe me, Victoria, I found things much more interesting than just that case from 9 years ago. Victoria's world tilted. You're lying. Am I? Emma took out her phone and scrolled. Email from August 15th. You and Mr. Hernandez discussing how to inflate billable hours on the Herrera industrial case. Email from September 3rd, coordinating with the accountant to hide bonuses in the company's tax returns. Call from October 12th. Enough, Victoria cut her off, feeling panic rise in her throat. Emma put away her phone and smiled. But it wasn't a triumphant smile. It was a sad, tired smile, from someone who has lost too much to celebrate victory. I didn't come to destroy you immediately. Victoria, I came to make you see me, to make you understand that you can't erase people, to make you feel what it's like to live with fear. And then, Emma shrugged. We'll see. It depends on you. Depends on me? Yes. On whether you learn something. On whether you at least try to be better than you were 9 years ago. Or if you remain the same woman who sacrifices others to maintain her pedestal. Victoria wanted to scream, wanted to explain that she had a family, responsibilities, that it wasn't as simple as Emma painted it. But all the words sounded hollow in her mind. You can't expect me to simply accept this, she finally said. I don't expect anything, Emma responded. I just observe and wait. She turned and walked to her desk as if the conversation had been about files or schedules. She sat down, turned on her computer, and began working with the same efficiency as always. Victoria stood there, watching her, feeling how everything she knew slowly crumbled. The rest of the day passed like a surreal movie. People arrived, greeted, asked for things. Victoria smiled, signed, approved, but her mind was elsewhere. It was on every movement of Emma's, on every file she opened, on every time their eyes met through the glass. At 3 p.m, Victoria had a meeting with the main partners. She would present the quarter's results. It was routine, something she'd done dozens of times. But when she was reviewing the documents Emma had prepared, she found something. An error, small, almost imperceptible. A miscalculated figure in the financial projection. Something that, if presented this way, would make her look incompetent in front of the partners. Victoria looked toward Emma's desk. She was typing something, without looking up. But there was a slight smile on her lips. It was intentional. Victoria quickly corrected the error and went to the meeting. Everything went well. Nobody noticed anything. But when she returned, Emma was waiting with a new folder. Sorry, Ms. Sullivan, she said in that soft professional voice. It seems I made an error in the documents. Did you notice? Her eyes sparkled with something that could have been amusement or could have been cruelty. I noticed, Victoria responded dryly, and I corrected it. Good thing you review everything before presenting, Emma said. You never know when something unexpected might appear. Victoria took the folder without saying a word and entered her office, closing the door harder than necessary. It was clear. Emma wasn't just waiting. She was playing, and Victoria was just beginning to understand the rules. That night, when Victoria got home, Michael was waiting with a glass of wine and a smile. Tyler had set the table for dinner. Everything was perfect, warm, real. But Victoria felt like an imposter in her own life. How was your day? Michael asked while serving the pasta. Normal, Victoria lied. Meetings, documents, the usual. You look tired. Are you sure you're okay? Victoria forced a smile. Just a lot of work. You know how it gets at the end of the year. But it wasn't work. It was the weight of knowing that someone had the power to destroy all this house, this family, this life she'd built with well-intentioned lies. After dinner, while Tyler did his homework and Michael watched the news, Victoria locked herself in her study and took out her laptop. She searched again for Emma Harrison. This time, she went deeper. Inactive social media, abandoned profiles. But on one of them, on a Twitter account that hadn't been updated since 2017, she found something. A photo. Emma, younger, thinner, with very short hair. She was at a march, The sign she held said, "Justice for those who were silenced." Victoria enlarged the image. There were other women around, some with similar stories, probably, all with that same look of someone who has lost something they can never recover. And then she saw the comment Emma had left on that post. "Someday, those who took everything from us will know what it feels like to be invisible. Someday, they'll have to look us in the eye." Victoria closed the laptop, feeling a knot in her stomach. Emma hadn't come just for professional revenge. She'd come to be seen, to exist again, to recover the voice Victoria had taken from her. And that was infinitely more dangerous than any threat, because it meant there would be no negotiation. There would be no sum of money to make her leave. There would be no apology to heal 9 years of invisibility. Emma wanted something Victoria didn't know if she could give. Recognition, truth, responsibility. Victoria rested her head on the desk, and for the first time in years, cried. Not for herself, not for what she'd lose if Emma spoke, but for what she'd done 9 years ago without thinking twice, for the woman she'd destroyed to build herself, and for the fact that perhaps Emma was right. Perhaps she deserved to feel what she'd made others feel. The game had just begun, but Victoria already knew that no matter how it ended, she had already lost. 3 weeks passed since the night of the storm. 3 weeks during which Victoria lived in a constant state of alert, waiting for Emma's next move. But there was no move. Only silence. Only efficiency. Only that discreet presence that now weighed like lead. Emma arrived punctually every morning, prepared the perfect coffee, organized meetings without errors, smiled politely at colleagues. She was the model assistant. Except for those moments when their eyes met, and Victoria saw something dark and patient shining in those brown eyes. It was like living with a time bomb that didn't tick. The stress began to manifest itself. Victoria stopped sleeping well. Lost weight. Michael asked if she was sick. Tyler commented that his mom seemed weird. But she couldn't say anything. What was she going to say? That she'd destroyed someone's career and now that person was back? One Wednesday afternoon, Victoria was reviewing a contract when Emma entered without knocking. She carried a tray with tea and cookies, something she never did. "I thought you might need a break," she said, placing the tray on the desk. "You look exhausted." There was genuine concern in her voice, and that disturbed Victoria more than any threat. "I'm fine," she responded without looking up. "No, you're not," Emma said softly. "And we both know why." Victoria finally looked at her. Emma had sat in the chair across from the desk without being invited, crossing her legs with a naturalness that revealed the power had changed hands. "What do you want, Emma?" Victoria asked, tired of pretending. "Money? A better position? What do I have to do to make this end?" Emma took one of the cookies and bit it slowly, thoughtful. "Do you remember that day when you presented the Romero case?" she asked instead of answering. "I was there, in the conference room, sitting in the back. All the partners congratulated you, called you brilliant, visionary. And you smiled and said it had been teamwork, though you never mentioned my name." Victoria clenched her jaw. "It was teamwork." "No," Emma corrected. "It was my work that you presented as yours. But that's not what hurt me most." She paused. "What destroyed me was that when I looked at you seeking at least a gesture of recognition, you looked me straight in the eyes and ignored me. As if I were air. As if I didn't exist." Her voice barely broke at the end, and Victoria saw something she didn't expect. Contained tears. "I was invisible to you," Emma continued. "And when I tried to speak, when I tried to claim what was mine, you didn't just ignore me. You erased me. You turned me into the crazy one, the problematic one, the one who had to go. It wasn't personal. Victoria said, and immediately knew it was the worst thing she could say. Emma laughed, but it was a laugh full of pain. It wasn't personal? Victoria, you took away my career, my identity, my future. How the hell was it not personal? The silence stretched between them like an abyss. Victoria wanted to defend herself, wanted to explain the pressures she had then, the fierce competition, the need to stand out or disappear. But all those reasons sounded empty in front of the raw pain in Emma's eyes. "I'm sorry," she finally said, and it was the first time she'd said it out loud. Emma looked at her for a long moment, studying her as if searching for signs of sincerity or manipulation. "Are you sorry?" she asked. "Or are you sorry I caught you?" "Both," Victoria admitted, and for the first time since everything began, she was completely honest. "I'm sorry for what I did to you, and I'm sorry you found me. Because now I have to face something I spent 9 years avoiding. The truth." Emma left the half-eaten cookie and stood up. She walked to the window, looking at the city stretching under San Francisco's golden sunset. Lights were beginning to turn on in the downtown buildings, and traffic on Highway 101 looked like a river of red and white lights. "When they fired me," she said without turning, "I spent 6 months unable to leave my apartment. My parents didn't understand what was wrong with me. I'd told them my career was going to take off, that all the effort had been worth it. And suddenly, nothing. Just silence and rejection. Every time I sent my resume, nobody responded. And when they did, they told me they'd spoken with Castellanos Industries, and there were inconsistencies in my work history." Victoria felt her stomach contract. She had requested that, had made sure Emma wouldn't get work at any important firm. She justified it as protecting the company, but the truth was darker. She wanted to make sure Emma couldn't tell her version of the story. "I became invisible," Emma continued. "Literally. I'd walk the streets and feel like nobody saw me. That I didn't matter. That I could disappear, and the world would keep spinning, as if I'd never existed. Emma, you know what saved me?" She turned, and her eyes shone with tears she refused to shed. "My sister, Sarah. She was the only one who didn't judge me, who didn't pressure me, who simply was there. She got me a job at her clothing store, forced me to get up every morning, and little by little, I rebuilt a life. Not the life I wanted, but a life." She paused, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "And then, 2 years ago, Sarah died. A car accident. Stupid, quick, unfair, and I was alone again. But this time was different. This time, the anger gave me purpose. I decided that if I was going to keep existing, it would be on my own terms. And those terms included looking you in the eye and forcing you to see me. If this doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does." Victoria felt something break inside her. It wasn't just guilt. It was recognition. It was finally seeing the person she'd destroyed not as a professional obstacle, but as a human being with history, with pain, with loss. "I don't know how to fix this," Victoria said, and her voice sounded small, vulnerable. "You can't," Emma responded. "You can't give me back those 9 years. You can't bring back my sister. You can't change the fact that every time I look in the mirror, I see someone who had to die to survive. Emma Harrison died that day in your office. The woman I am now is someone completely different. Then what do you want from me?" Emma approached until she was inches from the desk, her hands resting on the wooden surface, leaning forward. Her eyes were at the same level as Victoria's, and the intensity in them was almost unbearable. "I want you to see me," she said. "Really see me. Not as your assistant, not as your threat, as the person I was and who I am now. I want you to remember that I exist every day when you get here. That I'm real. That I have a name, history, pain. And only when you truly understand that, then we'll talk about what comes next." She straightened and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she stopped. "Oh, and Victoria," she said without turning. "Your husband called. Says Tyler has a game on Saturday, and whether you could arrive early for once. I told him you'd confirm." The door closed softly, leaving Victoria alone with the weight of everything she'd just heard. That night, Victoria didn't go straight home. She drove aimlessly through the city, passing through the financial district, through Golden Gate Park, through the Castro. San Francisco sparkled under the night sky, alive and indifferent to her personal crisis. She stopped in front of a church in the Mission District. She wasn't religious, but needed a quiet place to think. She entered. The smell of incense and candles enveloped her, and she sat on a bench in the back. When had she become this person? When had she decided that her success was worth more than someone else's dignity? She tried to remember the woman she was before that case, before that decision. A younger, more idealistic woman who believed in justice and hard work. But that woman had disappeared at some point, replaced by someone who knew how to play the game, how to win at any cost. And now, 9 years later, the cost had come back to collect the debt. Her phone vibrated. It was Michael. "Where are you? We're worried." Victoria looked at the message for a long time before responding. "On my way. Sorry. Love you." But as she wrote those words, she wondered if Michael would love her if he knew the truth. If Tyler would see her the same way if he knew what kind of person his mother was. She drove home, but the journey felt longer than ever. The following days were strange. Emma didn't mention anything personal again. She returned to her role as efficient assistant, but something had changed. There was no longer explicit tension between them, just a kind of silent understanding. Victoria began to observe her differently. She noticed things she'd ignored before. How Emma bit her lip when concentrating. How she always organized her desk before leaving, aligning each object with obsessive precision. How sometimes she looked out the window with an expression of deep melancholy. And she also noticed something more disturbing. Emma was beautiful. She always had been, but Victoria had never allowed herself to see it. Now, with her guard down, she saw the elegance in her movements, the intelligence in her eyes, the strength in her posture. It was dangerous. Not the danger of professional threat, but something more intimate, more confusing. On Friday, Victoria had a dinner with important clients. Emma had coordinated everything: the restaurant, the time, the necessary documents. But at the last minute, one of the clients canceled and suggested moving the meeting to early Saturday morning. Tyler's game. Victoria looked at her schedule, feeling the familiar weight of having to choose. Her family or her work. Her son or her career. The story repeated itself in ways she hadn't anticipated. Emma was watching her from her desk. Her eyes said, "I know exactly what you're thinking. I can move the dinner to Monday," Emma said. "The client is flexible. He just needs confirmation before 6. It was an out. Emma was giving her an out. "Why?" Victoria asked. "Why are you helping me?" Emma shrugged. "Because I'm not like you. I don't sacrifice others to get what I want." She paused. "And because that boy isn't to blame for his mother's decisions." The arrow hit its mark. Victoria nodded, unable to say anything more. On Saturday, Victoria arrived early to Tyler's game. Michael almost fainted from surprise. Her son ran to hug her, with that smile that reminded her why everything else mattered. But as she watched the game, her mind kept returning to the office, to Emma, to that decision from 9 years ago that kept sending ripples through her life. On Monday, when she arrived at the office, she found a manila envelope on her desk. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside were copies of all the documents Emma had mentioned, the emails about inflated hours, the conversations about hidden bonuses, everything that could destroy not just her career, but potentially lead to legal problems. And on the last page, a handwritten note. I didn't come to destroy you, Victoria. I came to make you see yourself in the mirror. These documents are yours. You can do with them what you want. Destroy them, confess, keep living with them. The decision is yours. I've already made my decision. I came, I looked you in the eye, and I forced you to see me. My work here is ending. In 2 weeks, I'll submit my resignation. Not because you won, but because I no longer need you to see me to know I exist. E.H. Victoria read the note 3 times, feeling something in her chest contract painfully. Emma was leaving. She'd leave without destroying her, without exposing her, without getting revenge. And that was somehow worse than any punishment, because it meant Emma was a better person than her, and that everything Victoria had built was erected on a moral weakness she could no longer ignore. She left her office and walked to Emma's desk. It was empty. The computer off. The phone not ringing. "Where's Emma?" she asked the receptionist. She called saying she'd be out all week. Personal matters. Victoria felt an irrational panic. She'd lost her. Before she could. What? Truly apologize? Fix something? Understand what that strange feeling growing in her chest every time Emma looked at her was? She returned to her office and sat down, staring at the manila envelope as if it were a bomb that hadn't exploded. The 2 weeks became a countdown. Victoria waited for Emma to return, but the days passed and there was no news. The receptionist said she'd called, that everything was fine, but that she needed time. Victoria began to feel something she hadn't felt in years. Fear of losing something she didn't know she valued until it was about to disappear. And then she realized something terrifying. It wasn't just guilt she felt toward Emma. It was something much more complicated. Emma returned one Monday morning, 10 days after her absence. Victoria was in a meeting when she saw her enter the 18th floor. Through the glass of the conference room, she watched Emma sit at her desk, turn on the computer, and begin working as if nothing had happened. But something had changed. Emma wore her hair down for the first time. It fell over her shoulders in dark waves that framed her face. She wore a navy blue dress instead of her usual gray tones. And when she finally looked up and their eyes met through the glass, there was something different in her gaze. Peace. Victoria almost lost the thread of the meeting. Mr. Hernandez had to repeat a question twice before she answered. Her partners exchanged worried looks, but nobody said anything. When the meeting ended, Victoria practically ran to her office. Emma was organizing files, humming a song softly. "Where were you?" Victoria asked without preamble. Emma looked up, surprised by the intensity in her voice. "Good morning to you too, Ms. Sullivan," she responded with a touch of humor. "I was resolving personal matters as I indicated. For 10 days. I needed to think. And..." Victoria felt her voice tremble slightly. "Are you still thinking about resigning?" Emma left the files and approached. There was a softness in her movements that hadn't been there before, as if she'd let go of something heavy during those days of absence. "Yes," she responded, "but not for the reasons you think." "What reasons?" Emma smiled, and it was a genuine smile, without bitterness. "I came here with a plan, right? Make you suffer, make you feel what I felt, maybe destroy your career. I spent 2 years preparing, building a false identity, getting this job. 2 years feeding the anger that kept me alive after losing everything." She paused, looking toward the window. "But when I was finally here, when I finally saw you every day, when I finally had the power to hurt you, I realized something. Revenge is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. And I'd already taken enough poison in my life." Victoria felt something in her chest loosen and tighten at the same time. "So what? You're just leaving? After all this?" "It's not just leaving," Emma corrected. "It's choosing to live instead of survive. It's deciding that my value doesn't depend on your recognition, It's understanding that I can exist without needing you to see me. But I see you, Victoria said, and the words came out before she could stop them. I see you now. Emma looked at her for a long moment, and in her eyes there was something Victoria couldn't decipher. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't satisfaction. It was something softer, sadder. I know, she finally said. And maybe that was the point. Not that you see me to make me feel better, but that you see yourself through me, that you understand the cost of your decisions. If any part of this story resembles your life, the hype button helps ensure it doesn't stay silent. And do I understand it? Victoria asked, moving a step closer. Is it enough? I don't know, Emma admitted. Is it? The silence stretched between them, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who had finally told each other the truth. I have something for you, Victoria said suddenly, returning to her office. She took out the manila envelope Emma had left her from her briefcase. The documents were still there, intact. I didn't destroy them, she explained, but I also don't want to live with them hanging over my head, so I'm going to do something different. What? I'm going to confess. Emma's eyes widened, genuinely surprised. What? Not everything, Victoria quickly clarified. I'm not going to sink the company or hurt innocent people, but I'm going to talk to the partners about what I did to you, about the Romero case, about how I took credit from you and ruined your career. And I'm going to ask that your name appear in the records as co-author of that work. Victoria. I know it doesn't make up for anything, Victoria continued. I know that 9 years late doesn't mean much, but it's the only thing I can do that's real, that's honest. Emma remained silent, processing. Then she slowly shook her head. You know that could ruin you? I know. And your family? Your son? I'll tell them the truth. Maybe not all of it, but enough for them to understand I made a mistake and I'm trying to fix it. Emma sat in the chair across from the desk, as if her legs could no longer support her. Why? She asked. Why would you do this? Victoria sat down too, and for the first time, let Emma see her complete vulnerability. Because you were right. I've lived 9 years without really seeing myself. I've built a life on a lie, and that lie has been eating me from the inside without me realizing it. And because... She paused, searching for the words. Because seeing your pain forced me to see mine. The pain of being someone who sacrifices others to survive. And I don't want to be that person ever again. Tears ran freely down Victoria's face, and she didn't try to stop them. Emma stood up, and to both their surprise, walked around the desk and hugged Victoria. It was a strange hug, tense at first, but that slowly softened until it became something genuine. You don't have to do this, Emma murmured against her shoulder. You already gave me what I came looking for. You saw me. You recognized me. That's enough. But Victoria shook her head, separating just enough to look into her eyes. It's not enough for me. I need to do this. Not for you. For me. Emma slowly nodded, understanding something that neither of them dared to name yet. This was no longer about revenge or justice. It was about two women who had truly seen each other for the first time in their lives and had found something unexpected in the reflection. That afternoon, Victoria requested a meeting with the 3 main partners. She brought all the documents from the Romero case, including Emma's original work. The meeting lasted 3 hours. There was shouting. There were threats of legal action. Mr. Sandoval, the most conservative of the partners, demanded her immediate dismissal. But Mr. Hernandez, surprisingly, defended her. If we fire her, we send the message that honesty is punished, he argued. Victoria made a serious mistake 9 years ago, but she's trying to fix it. That's worth something. In the end, they reached an agreement. Victoria would continue as legal director, but with a 30% salary reduction for 2 years. Emma Harrison would be officially recognized as co-author of the Romero case, and Victoria would have to work with HR to create a new protocol, ensuring that no junior employee would be stripped of their work. It wasn't a severe punishment for the crime she'd committed, but it was a beginning. When Victoria left the meeting, it was almost 9 at night. The 18th floor was empty, except for a figure waiting in the semi-darkness. Emma was still there. "I thought you'd have left," Victoria said. "I wanted to know how it went," Emma responded, standing up from her desk. Victoria told her everything: the agreement, the recognition, the new protocol. Emma listened in silence, and when Victoria finished, she smiled. "You're braver than I thought," she said. "Or more stupid," Victoria joked, though her voice trembled. "No, brave." Emma approached until she stood in front of her. "Many people in your position would have chosen silence, would have accepted my documents as forgiveness and moved on. But you chose discomfort. That's courage." Victoria felt something warm expand in her chest. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something like it. "You're still going to resign, right?" she asked. Emma nodded. "Yes, but not because I hate you, but because I need to start something new, something that's truly mine. I've been living in reaction to what happened with you for too long. It's time I live for myself." "And what are you going to do?" "Go back to studying law," Emma responded, and her eyes sparkled. "I finished my master's degree online during these years. Now that I have my official recognition in the Romero case, I can use it as a reference. I can apply to firms again, or maybe open my own practice. We'll see." "Emma." "Yes?" Victoria wanted to say so many things. Wanted to apologize in 1,000 different ways. Wanted to ask her to stay, though she had no right. Wanted to understand why every time Emma talked about leaving, she felt an emptiness in her stomach. But all she said was, "Thank you." For what? For not destroying me when you could have. For giving me the chance to be better. Emma smiled, a sad and beautiful smile. "I didn't give you anything you didn't deserve, Victoria. The opportunity was always there. You just needed to see it." They stood in silence, looking at each other in the semi-darkness of the empty office. Outside, San Francisco glowed with millions of lights, each one representing a life, a story, a choice. "Can I buy you a coffee?" Victoria asked suddenly. "Not as your boss, as, I don't know, as two people who need to talk outside these walls." Emma looked at her surprised, but then slowly nodded. "Okay, but this time, you pay." They went to a cafe in the Mission that was open late. They sat at a table in the back, away from curious eyes, and for the first time, talked as equals. Emma told her about her sister Sarah, about how she'd supported her in the worst moments, about how her death had been the trigger to come back and face her past, about how she'd imagined this moment 1,000 times and never thought it would end in a cafe sharing stories. Victoria told her about Michael, about how her marriage was more a partnership than a passion, about Tyler, who was the best thing in her life, about how she'd sacrificed so much pursuing an idea of success she wasn't even sure she wanted anymore. They talked until the cafe closed, and the waiter had to politely ask them to leave. When they went out to the street, the night air was fresh and clean. Emma breathed deeply and smiled. "I haven't felt this light in a long time," she confessed. "Me neither," Victoria admitted. They stood on the sidewalk, not knowing how to say goodbye. It was strange. After weeks of tension, now the silence between them was comfortable, almost intimate. "Well," Emma finally said, "I guess tomorrow will be another day of normal work before I submit my resignation." "I guess so," Victoria responded, though her voice sounded uncertain. Emma started to walk away, but Victoria stopped her. "Emma, wait," She turned. Yes. Victoria opened her mouth to say something, but the words got stuck. Because what she wanted to say was dangerous. Because what she felt was confusing. Because for the first time in her adult life, Victoria Sullivan wasn't sure of anything. Nothing, she finally said. Just, thank you for tonight. Emma nodded, but in her eyes, there was something that suggested she knew Victoria had wanted to say something more. You're welcome, Victoria. See you tomorrow. Victoria watched her walk away, her figure disappearing into the San Francisco night, and felt something unexpected, the urge to run after her, to stop her, to tell her. What? She didn't know. Not yet. But for the first time, she was beginning to suspect that what had been born between them wasn't just about guilt and forgiveness. It was about something much more complicated, something neither of them was ready to name yet. The following 2 weeks were the strangest of Victoria's life. Emma had formally submitted her resignation, but they agreed she'd finish out the month to facilitate the transition. That meant 30 more days of seeing her every morning, of sharing that space charged with history and something new that neither dared to name. But everything had changed. There was no longer war tension. What existed now was worse, an acute awareness of every look, every accidental touch, every silence that extended too long. Victoria found herself waiting for Emma to arrive each morning, discovered herself paying attention to absurd details, how Emma pulled back her hair when concentrating, how her fingers drummed on the desk when thinking, how her laugh, rare but genuine, lit up the entire 18th floor. It was inappropriate. It was dangerous. It was impossible to ignore. One Thursday afternoon, Victoria was reviewing a contract when Emma entered without knocking, something she now did more frequently. There was no longer that assistant reverence. They were. Something different. I need your signature on these documents, Emma said, placing a folder on the desk. Their fingers brushed when Victoria took the pen, and both froze for a fraction of a second. It was an insignificant contact, but the air charged with electricity. Are you okay? Emma asked, and there was genuine concern in her voice. Yes, Victoria lied. Just tired. Victoria. The way Emma said her name, without the Ms. Sullivan, without professional distance, made something in Victoria's stomach contract. Yes? Emma hesitated, biting her lower lip in that gesture Victoria had learned to recognize as uncertainty. Do you ever feel like... She began, but stopped. No, forget it. Tell me. Do you ever feel like you met someone at the wrong time? Emma finally asked, and her dark eyes were full of something Victoria recognized because she felt it too. Like the universe put someone important in front of you, but the circumstances were completely wrong. Victoria felt her heart accelerate. She knew exactly what Emma meant, because she felt the same every damn time she looked at her. Yes, she responded with a hoarse voice. I feel it. The silence stretched between them, dense and charged with everything they couldn't say, everything they shouldn't feel. I have to go, Emma said suddenly, taking a step back. Michael called. Said Tyler wants you to help him with a school project tonight. The mention of her family was like a bucket of cold water. Victoria blinked, returning to reality. Thanks, she murmured. When Emma left, Victoria stayed staring at the closed door, feeling two worlds collide inside her. She had a family, a husband who loved her in his way, a son who admired her, a life built over 15 years of marriage. And what was this? This attraction to a woman who had come to destroy her and ended up saving her from herself? This connection that didn't ask permission, that didn't wait for the right moment, that simply existed as an undeniable fact? That night, Victoria arrived home and helped Tyler with his project about the solar system. Her son talked excitedly about Jupiter and its moons, but Victoria's mind was miles away. Mom, are you listening? Tyler asked with a frown. Yes, sweetheart. Sorry. Jupiter has 79 moons. 95, Tyler corrected. Are you really okay? You've been weird lately. Michael appeared in the doorway with 2 beers. I've noticed it too, he said, offering her one. Work problems? Victoria took the beer and drank to buy time. Something like that. Nothing serious. Is it about that salary reduction? Michael asked, sitting next to her. I know it was hard to accept, but you did the right thing confessing your mistake. I'm proud of you. Victoria felt a pang of guilt. Michael didn't know the whole story. He only knew the sanitized version, that she'd made a professional mistake years ago and was fixing it. Thanks, she murmured. Hey, Michael took her hand. I know we've been distant lately. Work, Tyler, responsibilities. But I miss you. I miss you us. It was an invitation, an opportunity to reconnect, to remember why they'd married 15 years ago. Victoria should feel something, should want to get closer. But all she felt was an uncomfortable emptiness. Me too, she lied, squeezing his hand. That night, while Michael slept beside her, Victoria stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought about how she'd gotten here, a 42-year-old woman, married, with a son, a successful career, and suddenly completely lost. Because she couldn't deny what she felt. Every time Emma entered her office, her heart beat faster. Every time their eyes met, something inside her ignited. And every time she thought about Emma leaving in less than 2 weeks, she felt a panic that had nothing to do with work. It was attraction. It was desire. It was something Victoria had never felt with such intensity, not even in her early years with Michael. And it was terrifying, because it meant questioning everything. Her marriage, her identity, the life she'd built. Who was she if it turned out she'd been living at half capacity all this time? The days passed in a fog of confusion. Victoria tried to maintain professional distance, but it was useless. Emma seemed to be everywhere. In her mind when she tried to concentrate, in her dreams when she finally slept, in her thoughts every second of the day. Subscribe if you want to know how this story that's about to change. Everything ends. One Friday night, Victoria was working late finishing some contracts. It was almost 10 when Emma entered her office. I'm still here, she said simply. I thought you might need help. You didn't have to stay. I know, but I wanted to. They worked in silence for an hour, reviewing documents, exchanging professional comments. But the tension grew with each passing minute. The floor was deserted. They were alone, and that solitude felt dangerous and tempting at the same time. Done, Victoria finally said, closing the last file. We're finished. Emma stretched, and her blouse tensed, revealing the curve of her shoulders. Victoria looked away quickly, but not quickly enough. Emma had seen her looking. Victoria, she said softly. We need to talk. I don't know if it's a good idea. I know, but we have to do it anyway. Victoria nodded, feeling her heart beat against her ribs. Emma approached and sat on the edge of the desk, at Victoria's height, who remained in her chair. The proximity was almost unbearable. I came here to make you see what you did to me, Emma began. And you did. You saw me. You recognized me. You confessed. You accepted the consequences. That should be enough. My plan worked. She paused, and when she continued, her voice trembled slightly. But something went wrong. Because in the process of forcing you to see me, I also saw you. Not the woman who ruined my career. Not the cold, calculating boss. I saw Victoria. The woman who cries in her office when she thinks nobody sees. Who feels trapped in a life she's not sure she wants. Who's afraid to be vulnerable because she thinks vulnerability is weakness. Victoria felt tears beginning to form. Emma. And the problem, Emma continued, ignoring the interruption, is that Victoria matters to me, more than she should, more than is safe. The words hung in the air like a confession and a condemnation. "You can't say that," Victoria whispered. "Why not? Because you're married. Because this is inappropriate. Because we have history. Those are all good reasons, Victoria. But they don't change what I feel." "And what do you feel?" Emma leaned forward, and her dark eyes trapped Victoria's with an intensity that left her breathless. "I feel that for the first time in 9 years. I don't feel anger when I look at you. I feel peace. I feel curiosity. I feel..." She paused. "I feel like I want to know you for real. Not as my enemy, not as my boss, as Victoria, the real woman behind all the masks." "Me too," Victoria admitted, and it was the most honest thing she'd said in weeks. "But I don't know what to do with that. I have a family, a son. I can't just..." "I'm not asking you to do anything," Emma interrupted her softly. "I just needed you to know. Because in 2 weeks I'll be gone, and I don't want to leave with this kept inside. I've spent too many years keeping things I should have said." Victoria stood up from her chair, shortening even more the distance between them. They were inches apart now, and the air felt dense, charged with possibility. "If I kiss you now," Victoria said, her voice barely a whisper, "everything will change. We can't go back." "I know," Emma responded, "but I also can't let you leave without knowing what it feels like." "Then don't." Victoria closed her eyes, trying to gather sanity, rationality, all the reasons why this was a terrible idea. But when she opened them again, all she saw was Emma looking at her with a mixture of fear and hope that destroyed all her defenses. She approached slowly, giving Emma time to retreat. But she didn't. She stayed there, waiting, with parted lips, and her heart beating so hard Victoria could see it in the pulse of her neck. And then, with a softness that contradicted the storm inside her, Victoria kissed her. It was a tentative kiss at first, almost shy. But when Emma responded, deepening it, everything else disappeared. There was no office, there was no past, there was no family waiting at home. Only the two of them existed, finally honest, finally vulnerable, finally real. When they separated, both were trembling. "God," Victoria murmured, resting her forehead against Emma's. "What did we just do?" "Something neither of us planned," Emma responded, and there was a smile in her voice despite everything. "Something that probably complicates everything." "It definitely complicates it." They stayed like that for a moment, breathing the same air, processing what had just happened. Then Emma gently pulled away. "You should go home," she said. "Michael and Tyler must be waiting for you." The mention of her family was like waking from a dream. Victoria nodded, feeling simultaneously guilty and more alive than she'd been in years. "Emma?" "No." She stopped her. "Don't say anything now. Go home. Think. And then, when you're ready, we'll talk." Victoria wanted to protest, wanted to stay, wanted to understand what all this meant. But Emma was right. She needed to think clearly, and that was impossible being so close to her. She took her things and left without looking back, because she knew that if she did, she wouldn't be able to leave. The drive home was a blur. When she arrived, Michael and Tyler were already asleep. She got in the shower and let the hot water wash away the tears she couldn't contain. She had kissed Emma. She had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And the worst, or best, was that she didn't regret it. She felt guilty, confused, terrified, but not regretful, because that kiss had been more real than anything she'd felt in years, and that terrified her more than anything else. The following days were torture. Victoria and Emma barely spoke beyond the strictly professional. But every time their eyes met, the memory of that kiss vibrated between them like a shared secret. Victoria tried to focus on her family, took Tyler to the movies, had a romantic dinner with Michael. But she felt like an actress playing a role in a play whose script she no longer recognized. Michael noticed. "Is there someone else?" he asked one night suddenly while watching television. Victoria felt her heart stop. "What? You're not stupid, Victoria, and neither am I. You've been distant for weeks. You leave work late. You don't look at me the same way. So I'm asking you directly, is there someone else?" Victoria could have lied, should have lied. But after weeks of discovering the cost of lies, something in her broke. "I don't know," she responded honestly. "Maybe." Michael turned off the television and looked at her. There was no anger in his eyes, only sadness and, surprisingly, relief. "Is that why you confessed about that case? Because this person is making you reevaluate everything?" "Partially, but also because it was the right thing to do." Michael nodded slowly. "Do you love me?" he asked. Victoria wanted to say yes, wanted to assure him that nothing had changed. But she could no longer lie to him. Not after everything. "I care about you," she said carefully. "You're the father of my son, my partner of 15 years. But if you're asking me if I'm in love with you..." She paused. "No. I don't think I have been for a long time." Michael let out a long sigh, as if he'd been holding his breath for months. "Me neither," he admitted. "And I think we both knew it, but it was easier to ignore it." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who were finally telling each other the truth. "And now what?" Victoria asked. "Now we talk. Really. Without avoiding the difficult stuff." Michael took her hand. "Look, I'm not stupid. I know our marriage has been more logistics than love for years. I've also been distracted with work, with my own things. We've been roommates with a son in common more than spouses. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. You're not the only one responsible." He paused. "Is it a man or a woman?" Victoria felt her throat close. This was another line to cross. "A woman." Michael nodded, processing. "Do I know her?" "She's my assistant. Or she was. She resigns next week." "The young woman who answered when I called the other day?" "Yes." Michael remained thoughtful for a moment. "Okay, I'm not going to lie and say it doesn't hurt, but I'm also not going to pretend this is a surprise." He stood up and walked to the window. "Tyler is our priority. We need to handle this in a way that doesn't damage him." "I know. And we need time to understand what we want. Not just separate impulsively, maybe couples therapy, maybe separate for a while. I don't know." Victoria approached and hugged Michael from behind. It wasn't a romantic hug. It was a hug of gratitude for his honesty and maturity. "Thank you," she murmured against his back. "For not hating me." "I don't hate you, Victoria. I'm just tired. I think we're both tired of pretending." That conversation was the beginning of many others. They decided to go to couples therapy, not necessarily to save the marriage, but to end it in a healthy way if that was the path. They talked to Tyler, carefully and with honesty appropriate for his age, explaining that sometimes adults change, and that Mom and Dad needed to discover if they were still the right team. Tyler cried, asked difficult questions. But Michael and Victoria handled it together, as united parents even if as a couple they no longer worked. Through all this, Emma remained a constant presence in Victoria's thoughts. But she also gave her space. Didn't pressure, didn't ask. Just waited. Emma's last day came faster than Victoria was prepared for. It was a sunny Friday, typical of San Francisco in November. The 18th floor had organized a small farewell, and Emma smiled politely while people wished her luck. But when everyone left and only the two of them remained, the mask fell. "So this is it," Emma said, collecting the last things from her desk. "It doesn't have to be," Victoria responded. Emma looked at her, and in her eyes there was hope mixed with fear. "What are you saying?" Victoria approached, closing the physical distance she'd maintained for 2 weeks. "I'm saying I talked to Michael, that we're in therapy, that we're considering separation, and that regardless of what happens with us," she pointed between them, "I need to be honest about who I am and what I want." "And what do you want?" "I don't know completely yet," Victoria admitted, "but I know I want to find out. I know I don't want you to disappear from my life just when I'm starting to understand it." Emma dropped the box she was packing and took Victoria's hands. "Victoria, I don't want to be the reason your marriage ends. I don't want to be your midlife crisis or your experiment. You're not. My marriage has been ending for years, only neither of us wanted to admit it. And this," she squeezed her hands, "isn't an experiment. It's possibly the most real thing I've felt in my adult life. But it's complicated. Yes, it's complicated, scary, and uncertain." Victoria smiled, a small but genuine smile. "But after everything we went through, I think we deserve to try something real, something that isn't built on lies or revenge or guilt. Just two people who truly saw each other and decided they wanted to keep seeing each other." Emma let out a choked laugh, between tears and relief. "You know this could be a total disaster, right?" "I know. But I prefer an honest disaster to a perfect life built on lies." They stayed like that, standing in the middle of the empty office, holding hands as if they were a lifeline in the midst of uncertainty. "So what do we do?" Emma asked. "We go slow. I finish resolving things with Michael fairly. You start your new life, and we see if what we feel survives outside these walls, in the real world. And if it doesn't survive, then at least we tried, and that's already more than most people dare to do." Emma nodded, wiping tears with the back of her hand. "Okay, but with one condition." "What?" "That you really work on yourself. In therapy, in understanding why you did what you did, not just to me, but in your life in general. Because I don't want to be with someone who's running from their past. I want to be with someone who has faced it." "Deal," Victoria said. They approached slowly, and this time the kiss was different. It didn't have the urgency of the first. It was softer, more secure, full of promise instead of desperation. When they separated, Emma smiled. "You know, I came here to destroy you. And in a way I did. I destroyed the Victoria who pretended to be perfect, who hid her mistakes, who lived on autopilot." "And what about the new Victoria?" "That one," Emma touched her cheek softly, "I like much better." They finished packing together, talking about uncertain but exciting future plans. Emma had gotten an internship at a boutique firm specializing in labor rights. Victoria was considering a career change after completing her 2-year sentence at Castellanos Industries. When the time came to really leave, they stood in the parking lot, neither wanting to be the first to get in their car. "We'll talk tomorrow, right?" Victoria asked. "And the day after, and the next?" Emma smiled. "You're not going to lose me that easily after all this work." They said goodbye with a long hug, ignoring curious looks from some straggling employees. It didn't matter anymore who saw them or what they thought. That was another freedom that came with honesty. Victoria drove home with a feeling of lightness she hadn't experienced in years. Her life was chaos. Her marriage was carefully crumbling. Her career had taken a hit, and she was falling in love with a woman she'd met under the worst possible circumstances. But for the first time in her adult life, she felt free. The following months were a whirlwind of changes. Victoria and Michael initiated the separation process amicably. They sold the big house and bought 2 smaller apartments, making sure both were close to Tyler's school. They implemented shared custody that worked surprisingly well. Tyler adapted better than expected. He cried, had difficult moments, but Michael and Victoria kept their promise to be united parents. And slowly, he saw that his parents were happier separated than together. Emma and Victoria took things slowly. Dinners, coffees, walks through Golden Gate Park. Long conversations about everything and nothing. They learned to know each other outside the boss-assistant context, outside the drama of their shared history. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments. There were moments when the past resurfaced, and they had to face it again. But each time, they chose honesty. Each time, they chose to face things together. 6 months after Emma's last day at Castellanos Industries, Victoria finally formally introduced her to Tyler. It was a casual afternoon, pizza and a movie, but it meant everything. Tyler was shy at first, but Emma had that natural ability to connect with people, and soon they were laughing together while Victoria watched them with a mixture of gratitude and wonder. "I like her," Tyler told Victoria later when Emma had left. "She's different from Dad, but I don't know. She makes me feel like it's okay to be different." Victoria hugged her son, feeling prouder of him than words could express. A year after that stormy night that changed everything, Victoria and Emma were on the rooftop of a building in the Mission District. It was a clear night, and San Francisco's lights sparkled like earthly stars around them. "Remember when you said you hated me?" Victoria asked, leaning against the railing. "I didn't say I hated you," Emma corrected, approaching. "I said I wanted you to feel what I felt." "And did I feel it?" Emma looked at her for a long moment, studying her face under the dim light of the street lamps. "I think you felt something worse. You felt what it's like to live a lie. And that was probably more effective than any revenge I could have planned." "So you won?" "Nobody won, Victoria. But we both survived, and that's better." They kissed under San Francisco's night sky, two women who had found each other in the worst circumstances and had chosen to build something beautiful from the ruins. It wasn't the love story either had imagined. It was more complicated, more real, more imperfect. But it was theirs. And in a city that never slept, under a sky full of possibilities, that was more than enough. Victoria still had difficult days, moments when guilt resurfaced, moments when she questioned every decision she'd made. But Emma was there, not as her savior or her judge, but as her equal. As someone who had also made mistakes, who had also had to rebuild herself. "You know what's most ironic about all this?" Emma said one night, while having dinner in her new apartment. "What?" "That I came to teach you a lesson, but the one who learned the most was me." "What did you learn?" "That revenge doesn't heal, that forgiveness isn't forgetting, and that sometimes the most unexpected people can show you who you really are." Victoria smiled, intertwining her fingers with Emma's. "Then I guess we both saved each other." "I guess so." Like a lightning bolt, she heard our song one more time. The future was uncertain. Victoria didn't know where they'd be in 5 years, or if what they had would last forever. But she'd learned that perfection was a myth, that the real was messy, complicated, beautiful, precisely because of its imperfections. Emma had entered her life like a storm, revealing everything Victoria had buried. And in the process of being exposed, Victoria had found something she didn't know she was looking for: herself. Not the perfect executive, not the ideal wife, not the flawless mother. Just Victoria, human, imperfect, trying to be better every day. And that, she decided, was worth more than any perfect lie. If you want the continuation of this story, write it in the comments, because that's the only way I'll know what you want. And don't forget that YouTube only prioritizes subscribers. So subscribe now so you don't miss the next story that will make you believe in love and second chances. This is just the beginning.